Welcome back to the Real Friends podcast. You should know these guys. They've been here before. We've got Tony back on the casting couch in my recording studio. And then on the other end of the screen, we have Mike. You should remember him from Clown and Cornfield. So thanks for coming on,
Yeah,
guys.
Yeah, thank
sure.
you.
And we've got a lot of horror stuff going on in the background over there, Mike. So what's the coolest piece we've got behind you?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I really like the John Carpenter signed Halloween. The Devil's Rejects one over here. I try to get as many of those signatures as I can. There's more on the other side, but you know, I think the John Carpenter one because I actually won that in a contest.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. I mean, all these other ones are pretty cool too, but you know, the
That's
Halloween one's the best.
nice. Yeah, we'll actually be recording in his studio in there in a couple days, so that'll be exciting. We have a uh podcast review for a film a lot of people haven't heard of, and they should. It's an independently produced film called A Halloween Feast. I'm going to be interviewing the director here in a couple days, and then we're going to review the movie. So pretty exciting times. Check it out on Tubi. It's a fun time. The director specifically told me it gets better the second time, so I would try to watch it twice.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a very fun schlock horror movie. So with Lynn Lowry, who is a goddess in horror films. So. But we're not here to talk about a Halloween feast. We are here because all of our hard work recording the five Final Destination recaps in an hour and 12 minutes has led to Final Destination Bloodlines, the sixth film in the franchise that came out on Friday. Give me you guys' basic thoughts. Mike, go first. What did you think?
Yeah, so I really liked it. The beginning, I was a little iffy about it. I was like, where are we going with this? But I really thought that out of all of them, the effects were actually the best on this one. I thought that the gore was really done well, and the kills were done well. It's an interesting story. We'll get into more of that then.
Yeah, it real quick about the gore and stuff, right? So we talked about the budget for these films in the recap. First couple were 20 million, the final two were 40 million. Rumors about the budget for this film were anywhere from 40 to 160 million dollars.
Wow.
Um, and I saw they released the budget on Wikipedia either yesterday or today. It was 50 million. So only 10
Okay.
more than the previous two movies. And it it's good. And honestly, this is also the longest runtime of any of the Final Destination movies. So that extra 10
Wow.
million could have just came in that. Like, because this was almost 2 hours, and the other ones are a succinct like 90 minutes. So, but yeah, cool. What do you think, Tony?
I kind of agree with Mike because that beginning, like I told you, it threw me for a loop. I mean, I have all my notes confused because I wasn't for sure. But yeah, the overall premise of the movie, the deaths, they were freaking awesome. I went to see it again last night and totally amazing.
Are you still confused after last night, or did it get better?
Oh no, no, it got better. But I took my son and Aiden, and he said he as soon as that happened, and as soon as she started yelling, he was like, "What the hell is going on?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
because this was actually the first time that they had a flash back premonition, a flash
right.
forward premonition. So if that's
Yeah.
even a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
That's one of my first notes though. We'll talk about the Skyview Tower and all that stuff like in a minute because I want to go through that. I want to know what you guys' favorite deaths were because that was a sick scene. It's being hailed as one of the greatest openings to a horror film of all time by like
Really?
horror internet. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um I adored the way they did this. And the reason for that is, we already had five of these films, right? They're all pretty cookie cutter in what they do. It's we get a premonition, the person tries to save the day, they only save a couple people, right? What this one did, and what I like about movies that, especially when you're making a sequel almost 15 years later, I don't want you to just make the same thing. Give me something different. And this brought us those tropes and it added nuance that I thought was sick. And what made it especially cool was the idea that we didn't know what happened then. Like for a good 20, 30 minutes in the movie, we don't know if Skyview did collapse. We don't know if anyone
Hmm.
died. We didn't know anything. And so that led to a really cool scene with Iris later where we learn all of that. So I thought it was sick. I really did. But at first in the theater, yeah, I was the same way. I was like, what are we doing? And I was like, you know what? I'm here
Yeah.
for it. I'm here. Let's check it out. So, but yeah, let's start right there, man. So, it starts the Skyview Tower. It's, I believe, the 1960s. And we have a couple who shows up and, they're going to have dinner at this restaurant, basically, right? And from the minute you walk in the door, you can tell this tower has issues, right? They go to get into the elevator and the elevator malfunctions. The bellhop can't get it shut. And it's opening night. So you would think you would have been testing this thing, right? Like,
Yes.
oh, and then he goes on to tell them that it was finished 5 months ahead of schedule.
Right.
And
Right.
because we know the movie we're here for, we know what's about to happen. We're all well aware. And it's especially funny to me that she looks up and sees capacity 8 people. And he has what, 25 people in that
Mm.
elevator?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's pretty great. And we go up and we get the typical what's up?
Oh,
Oh,
none.
you're looking like we get up to the restaurant and they do the typical thing like, oh, sorry, we can't, let you be seated or whatever. Um, and then we get our huge premonition. And this premonition ripped, dude. Like what were you guys' favorite deaths in this premonition?
Hey, like I would have to say, just jump in here with that was it ties into my favorite one because that kid at the whole start of it, he's like causing me anxiety. That kid, with the getting the penny out, which I'm sure we'll talk about later,
Yeah.
up and down on the elevator, like and just I was waiting for that kid to get, and then when he comes down, I thought, oh man, I was like, there's no way they're gonna let that kid live. And when he got crushed, I was like, yes, okay, good, because that was my favorite actually. All the other ones are just like, there was it was very chaotic, and you're
Yeah.
thinking, oh man, this is happening, but there were deaths that you were like, oh, like her husband, like her fiance, when he
Hmm.
like, because they could just let him fall, but
Right.
fall, he hit like the beam and then turned and then fell. And I was like, well, okay.
And he
So
died
yeah.
pretty quick.
Mhm.
Y-
Yeah.
You know, um, I think my favorite one, I mean, the kid was awesome. I loved when that,
It was satisfying, right?
it was
Like,
Yeah.
satisfying,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
exactly.
Exactly.
like he's not quite on the same level as the racist dude in Final Destination 4. That's still the most
Oh,
satisfying death
yeah.
in the franchise. But seeing that
Yeah.
kid die, I really appreciate it. He was like a skinny Augustus Gloop. He was just the
Oh,
worst human
yes,
being.
yes, most
Yeah. But you,
definitely.
you, you realize like none of it, like he was the catalyst, like
Yeah,
for the whole
yeah,
thing. And then
Yeah.
more so even later, that
yeah.
freaking kid,
And
you
I
know?
do want to talk more into detail on that, but I want to get your favorite death first.
So I think mine revolves around a penny also. When the penny falls on top of
The
the
piano.
piano and the
Yeah.
piano just
Oh,
goes
yeah.
like this and slams into that woman.
Yes. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? We reviewed this a little bit on the Forest Film Club podcast, and they were talking about how death is a scam. That piano could have fell at any point, but no,
Hmm.
it
No.
had to wait to the penny. So let's talk about the penny, right? Because when we first show up, they're outside, and there's that fountain we
Yeah.
were talking about, and that kid is
Hmm.
taking a penny, and someone specifically says, "Don't take pennies out of a fountain; it's bad
Bad
luck."
luck.
Right? And then he's
Right.
up on the tower and he throws the penny and it goes down and gets in the ventilation system and
Yeah.
causes everything. But the coolest part about the penny is right after the kid dies, the penny rolls back into the fountain.
Yep. Yep. And that's where it was
Yeah.
I thought it was done there, but no,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
comes back.
I had two, so you took the piano, so my favorite, and it's satisfying too, because I hated him, was the hostess. Like
Okay.
such a dick, and then he
Oh
goes
yeah,
and he gets shattered by the elevator.
that
That was
was definitely
cool.
a good effect there. Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that was great. Because, we had talked about one of our favorite deaths in the other films was the second film with the elevator scene. So the fact that they brought an
Yeah.
elevator back was really, really cool. And I have, at the end of the podcast, I have a list of Easter eggs from the other films that I want to go through. And if you guys caught any, we'll talk about them too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, this whole premonition happens, right? And then it snaps and it's someone's eyes and they're screaming. And all of us being Final Destination fans, like we talked about, we're assuming it's going to go back and it's going to show how she saved the day. But it's not. It's Stephanie, who is a college student screaming in the middle of a lecture. My guess is it was an 8 a.m. because I used to fall asleep in my 8 a.m. every week. So that's my guess. But, we find out that she is a descendant of Iris, the woman who had the premonition at the beginning.
Hmm.
Um, so she tells us that she's been having these visions for 2 months now, which will be important later on.
Mhm.
So she has another dream that night after class, and her roommate's like, "If you don't go home, you're going to die because I'm gonna kill you."
Yeah.
Yep.
So she goes home and she tries to talk to her family about uh what's going on, and no one will talk to her about her crazy grandma Iris.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of like I thought that was a little over the top where it's like, is she really that bad, guys? Because honestly, like if I had a crazy grandma Iris, I would be hanging out because I'd want to hear those stories. I want to
Yeah.
hear what she's doing. Like, why they cast her off? Like, I mean, I know it moves the story along, but I was like, I kind of want a grandma Iris.
Yeah, that's how I felt then too, until we go to Grandma Iris's house.
Hey,
Yeah, I think it still would have been cool, but like I kind of get it, and finally her Uncle Howard cracks and he's like, "Look, our childhood was terrible. She didn't let us go outside. She didn't let us do anything." And that clues the fans into the fact that she was just afraid of dying.
hmm.
So we kind of know what's gonna happen, right? So then Aunt Brenda secretly helps Stephanie and is like, "Please don't go look in this specific drawer." And she does, and she finds all these letters that show her where her grandma Iris lives. Um, so then, yeah, she shows up, and it's a fortress. And I'm just gonna talk about an Easter egg now. This is a Easter egg to the first film, because Alex does the same thing. He doesn't go off to like this way off cabin, but he goes to a cabin and like fortifies it and stuff to try to keep everything from death away from him. So that was part of it. I saw that he actually got asked to come back for this film. And he
Hmm.
refused because in the fifth film, when they used the scene from the first movie, they didn't
Yeah.
pay him.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, they didn't pay him.
wow.
So he refused to come back. So that's unfortunate. But I mean, it
Yeah.
wouldn't. I don't know how it would have made sense. Actually, I do know how it'll make sense, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. Um, but anyhow, she shows up at the fortress, and I mean, what did you guys think of the fortress, man? I thought it was sick.
I mean, she was trying to be safe and stuff, but there was so many things that could have killed her.
Outside,
Well, even inside, there was a lot of stuff inside that could have killed her too.
yeah,
I don't, yeah, I don't know how, she wasn't like Ali Larter and,
in a padded
in a
room.
padded room. I mean, for
Yeah.
crying out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It looked like she had more control over death inside. So like whenever something started moving, she caught it a lot better. Whereas,
yeah,
outside, like you said, there was a lot more things out there that could get to her and she
yeah.
had less control. So
But
being
that was to
inside, she
keep
had
people
more.
out. That was to keep people away, though.
Away.
But how
Yeah.
did she get groceries or anything?
Uh,
Like that's my thing.
she ordered
But she
DoorDash
had,
or Instacart.
yeah. Yeah.
She
I
did
think,
it.
Tony, you
Yeah.
were at her house one night, right? You went
Oh
there
yeah,
one
most
time, didn't
definitely.
you? So it looked like she was growing things.
Yeah.
Like she
Yeah.
was making her own stuff, and maybe that was her sustenance, to just keep on doing that. So
Yeah, but I wonder too, like, I don't know if it says that. I wonder how long she's been there because, she used to send letters and stuff. And if she's not letting anyone in, how is she sending letters out? I don't know.
right, right.
Unless
I
she
didn't even think
had
Wow.
about the
unless
letters.
she had like a Doc Brown thing where she
Uh,
pushed a button and it threw it up into like the mailbox out front. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, or like a Pee Wee Herman thing, with like
Yeah.
whether it's like whatever they called,
Yeah.
where the boot kicks the fan and the fan blows the letter out and a pigeon. Hey, that might be it, like a pigeon type thing, like
Oh,
carries the letter,
yeah. Yeah.
and then
If they
she
Yeah.
ate. Yeah, because she could probably like shoot birds or stuff. You never know. It might be something that she did. I don't know.
Seeing pigeons would have been a cool callback to
That would have been
the
Yeah,
cool.
is that the third movie, I think? Where no, yeah, the third movie
the
where the
roller
kid
coaster.
dies. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
because
third one.
that's the dentist office. Yeah, the third one.
Yes.
So, Iris, then we get that moment I was talking about where Iris explains to Stephanie what happened. And you talked about Ali Larter. There's another Easter egg right here with before she'll let Stephanie into her house, she has to empty her pockets so nothing can kill her. That's exactly what Ali
Yep.
Larter did. That was her
Yeah.
requirement to seeing her in the padded room.
Hmm.
So I should probably be scratching these off so I don't talk about them again. But
Yeah.
so yeah, then Iris explains to Stephanie what happened at Skyview, and this is the only time in the franchise that the premonition saved every single person.
Yes.
Like she is
Yeah.
like Mundo said this on the Forest Film Club podcast. This is the closest thing we've ever had to a hero in the Final Destination films because she was able to save everyone.
Yeah.
So
But she wasn't considered a hero like um part four.
yeah,
Yeah, the whatever his name was.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
the main kid because
Yeah.
the lady with the tampon earplug
Yes.
called him a
Yeah.
hero. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to me that Stephanie has seen all of these things, and then she's this is kind of a weak point to me. Then Grandma is telling her that all of this is real, and she doesn't believe her.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not? No one believes you, and you feel how ostracized you are, and then Grandma is validating
Yeah.
everything you think,
Exactly.
and you're just like, nah, you're crazy. Like,
No.
never mind.
I, I mean, did she not believe her though? Or
She openly
I
Yeah.
mean,
She
yeah,
said,
she said
totally.
she did. I know she
Uh,
said it,
she
but
totally didn't believe her. She
the
was leaving. That's why the very next thing happened. Because
yeah.
then Grandma's like, I could die in 2 months of this cancer that I have, or I could just walk outside and prove to her this is real.
yeah,
And you said about the 2 months, that's important, right? Because when she
Yeah.
got diagnosed with cancer is when Stephanie's vision started.
yes.
Right. Right.
So yeah, that was an important part.
I don't know. I was just thinking, you know how you go you talk to somebody, they tell you something, and you're like deep down in you believe them, but you don't want to. I think that was
Uh,
Stephanie in a way, and she
yeah,
just wanted
but
to get away,
no,
and
that was
she
the whole
didn't want.
reason she went home. That was the whole
Yeah.
reason she
I
went
know,
home.
but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I see your point. I think that's more of a how you process things,
Oh
like
yeah,
in your personal life, because if I was Stephanie, right, and I finally found this person, she's telling me everything I had, and I wanted an answer, like
Mhm.
I would be staying there to figure out what to happen. Your grandmother is
Yep.
handing you a book
Yep.
telling you this is how you stay alive, and she's like, "I'm good." So,
Yeah.
so then grandma has and this is a very cool scene because, the way she dies, right? Because I talked about this a little on the other podcast. Like, I don't know if either of you hunt, right? But if you have guys who have their private property and they're tracking a deer for
Mhm.
years on their property,
Oh
and
yeah.
finally one day it steps out in the open, they don't care if it's at 400 yards, they're taking a shot. And that's what
Yeah.
Death did. Death didn't hint he was coming. The minute she walked outside, he took that weather vane and threw it through her
Yeah.
face.
I know. I thought that was great. That was great.
yeah.
I was already feeling like how these death scenes were gonna go from the Skyview premonition, especially that hand rip. We didn't really talk about
Yeah.
that, but that hand rip was really good.
Oh,
But when that weather vane came through the front of her face and like bam, I was like, okay, these are gonna be some good ones,
Yeah.
and it didn't disappoint. So
It did not.
no.
No, this honestly, dude, like this movie as a whole had the best deaths. Like
yeah,
I still think you and I talked about it on Clown in a Cornfield. The best death in the whole franchise is still the barbed wire through that guy in the
yes,
second film.
yes,
Um,
that's true.
but these are probably 2 through 8 for me. These deaths were amazing.
Yeah,
Um, so, as soon and she says something really important there too, right? Because, this is what genuinely what grandma believes. She walks out and she's like, well, seeing is believing. And then
yep,
boom, she's
yep.
dead. So then yeah, we get our first funeral, right? In all of these movies, we have at least one funeral. And this one we get it, and it's Iris's funeral. And at Iris's funeral, so we didn't talk about it, but Stephanie and her brother Charlie's mom had left years ago.
Mhm.
And then for some reason she decides to come back for mom's funeral.
Yeah, I think she would.
Yeah.
Don't you? I mean, I think she would, right?
And her brother sent her the
Yeah,
message.
emailed her, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I do think the most useless character in this film is her husband, the Stephanie's dad.
Oh yes, I
Yeah,
totally
he
agree.
doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't do anything.
No, does
No.
absolutely
No,
nothing. I'm pretty sure, like, we'll get there, but I'm pretty sure when he goes on his walk, he just never comes back,
no, he
right?
doesn't.
Like he's a dad that went to get milk and never came
Yeah.
back. So yeah, we have the funeral, right? And then they all go back to Uncle Howard's for a barbecue, and Stephanie does not. She goes back to her house to read the book that her grandmother gave her.
Mm,
Um, and she sees reference to someone named JB. And all of us being a little clued in, the idea that it's like JB knows someone that lived and it's
yeah.
B, I assumed it was Bloodworth. But I think they were trying to do a big reveal with that later. I'm not sure. But I definitely
I
thought it was Bloodworth.
think it was like I think his name is isn't it William J. Bloodworth and
James William Bloodworth or something like
something
that,
like
I
that.
think.
Yeah, I wasn't
Yeah,
sure if like they were trying to throw you off with the J being
I
the
think they were.
JB,
Yeah.
but even to that point, like I don't know, when the whole premonition thing, we didn't talk about that, and I guess we're going to talk about that maybe
Yeah,
now. But since you brought it up, but there was the lounge singer, the one of the singers, or what was she? She was like a backup singer, I think.
yeah, I think
Um,
so.
yeah. So like her son was there at the
Mm.
Skyview, and he during the whole thing he like gets in like a box or something like that and hides in a box, and then Iris tries to save him.
Right.
Hmm.
And it turns out that was Bloodworth as a kid,
Yep.
right? But it was funny that I'm totally watching to Iris's house, and that's when it clicked for me. Like it had nothing to do with what I was watching on screen, but I was like, oh, that was him. That's him. That's going to come back in later, and that's where the whole like JB knows someone who lived. I was like, oh, they're tied together. They must be communicating somehow. So
Yep.
you know,
Yep. And in knowing that, because he and I had talked about this on the recap episode, knowing that this movie wanted to touch on his origins, when I saw
mm,
he was the very last one to die after her, I knew who he was. They didn't have to tell me. I'm glad they did, right? But I
mm,
knew that's who it was.
right.
Um, so at the family barbecue. So this is one of the I don't know. How do you feel about trailers, Mike? Do you watch trailers or do you try to avoid them?
I avoid them. Like
Do you?
if I already know I'm going to see the movie, I avoid
Yeah.
them. So I
Yeah.
don't.
So I'm gonna start because I think you told me you didn't see Sinners yet, right?
No, no, I want
So
to.
definitely avoid the Sinners trailer. The Sinners trailer
Oh yeah,
shows you
I'm not watching that.
shows you multiple like important parts in the movie that kind of ruined it for me the first time I watched it. Now I've
Uh,
watched it again and I've appreciated it a lot more, but like trailers are ruining movies for me, so I'm trying to avoid them. But I adore the marketing for this movie. So they released two scenes in trailers. The first one they released was the tattoo parlor.
That was awesome.
okay,
The second one they released was the family barbecue. So I
okay.
knew how Uncle Howard was going to die. Even though I
Oh,
did, this was such a well directed scene and it was insane. The entire
yeah.
thing was insane.
It was anxiety inducing. Like
Oh,
I was
yeah.
anxious the entire time. You didn't know what was going to happen. All these little things that people could die from. I was like, man,
Yes.
who is going to get it?
Yeah. Who
Who's
is
going to
going to
get it?
get it? Yeah.
Because at that point you don't have a path established yet. So
Right.
anyone is at that point
Hmm.
because you don't know how death is orchestrating this.
Yep. Yeah, because you don't, when we see Iris die, there's a part of you that's like, oh, maybe they're not coming. But, Iris specifically says death's coming for our family.
Hmm.
But you still don't know who's going to get ganked. You have
No.
no idea. And they play
Right.
with that a lot in this movie, and I love that because that's another nuance thing that we really didn't see coming. So yeah, it turns out it's kind of everyone's fault that Uncle Howard dies, right? Like the son. Oh, what is the son's name? The goofy one, Bobby.
Bobby.
So
Bobby, yes.
Bobby breaks the glass. The piece of glass gets in someone's drink, right?
Hmm.
And they all walk up and they cheers and start drinking out of the glasses. And then Julia starts choking. And so the audience is like, "Yep, She's getting
Yep.
it. I don't know why she's the one getting it, but she's getting it. And then the entire
The
theater,
bug.
the entire theater laughed when she's like, "Oh, there's a bug in my drink."
Ah.
And then and then Darlene has a hand in it, right? Because Darlene, the entire time they're jumping on the trampoline, we have the Chekhov's
Mhm.
gun of the rake under the
Mm.
Yep.
trampoline, and we
Yeah.
think the rake's going to get someone. And then Darlene goes over and grabs the rake and puts
Yep.
it in the holder. Um, and then yeah, we had seen a little when we first were introduced to Uncle Howard, we see him mowing and see that it zooms right in on the big green button for him turning it off. So that clues you into,
Yeah.
all right, something with this
Some.
mower is going to happen.
Yeah. First thing I thought was like, oh, it's an electric mower.
Yes,
You
that's what
know.
I thought too. Yeah, it's
Eh.
an electric mower. Yeah.
Whoa. You know.
So what is the what movie was it? Oh, Clown in the Cornfield, where they're like, oh, we have to save the world one cow at a time. Got to save the world
Yeah.
one gas engine at a time.
Yeah. Right.
um, so yeah, they're all talking a little bit more. Darlene or Uncle Howard sees that was it Stephanie showed up? Yeah, Stephanie
Yeah.
shows up right then
Yep.
because she gets clued into what's going to happen. We still
Yeah.
don't
Right.
know who's going to die, but Stephanie saw something in that book telling her that someone's going to die. So
Right.
she shows up. Uncle Howard gets off the trampoline, starts to go talk to her, which, I mean, why do we have three grown men on a trampoline? Like, it's going to rip.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen. But he gets off. He goes to greet Stephanie, right? So this is also partially her fault. And he steps on that piece of glass. The trampoline rips, right?
Yep.
Which scares him. And then I think it's Aunt Darlene is grabbing a drink and knocks a beer bottle off.
Mm.
And it
Yeah.
turns on the hose. And so the hose starts filling with water. The hose
Yep.
pushes the rake up out. The rake hits the mower, goes over. Uncle Howard steps on the glass, falls, and it goes right over his head
Yep.
and completely kills him. And so, right after that moment, we go inside and we have our like detective scene, right? Where she's taking all of the stuff and trying to explain to them, hey, this is what's
Yeah.
happening. This is why we're all going to die. And no one still believes
I
her.
that was not. I was not happy with that. I was like, guys, like, what is wrong with you? You just saw this like bizarro death. You had Iris earlier, like two deaths in like I maybe like a span of 3 or 4 days.
I
You
bet it
know
was
why?
probably, yeah, not long, right?
Yeah, no, not long. I mean, you got to have
Uh,
the like body on ice and stuff like that for funeral arrangements and things like that. So if they have a funeral, that's a couple days, right?
Yeah.
So then, I think they had a funeral for Howard. Did it?
I
Did
think
they
you're
have a
right.
yes.
funeral
Yeah.
for?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
Right
right.
So then they're
after.
all after that, and then they're all like, "Oh, we don't believe you." Oh, and they're getting angry. I'm
Yep.
like, guys, you are like, but what if they did? Well, they said, you know what? We do believe you. We're just going to go to Aunt Iris's house and live there for the rest of our days.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then there's no movie. So I guess they
Right.
have to all have this like disbelief. But then now that I'm saying this, I'm thinking, okay, well, what if this disbelief comes from the way that they acted before when they talked about Iris? So
Yeah.
these people just don't believe anything,
Yeah.
anything you tell them. They say that it's just anything may be kind of out there, they're not going to believe. So
Yeah.
that's probably like that's just the way the family is.
But like, if I'm rewriting this movie, right? Which I'm saying criticisms of this. I love this movie. This was my favorite Final Destination film, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But like, they set it up that Darlene and Stephanie are the last two in the room, and I thought Darlene was going to be like, "Honey, I believe you, but I don't know what to do about it," and she doesn't.
Mm,
She
yeah.
tells her like, "Yeah, no, like even though I've lived with this all of my life, like don't let my mother negatively affect you." Right? Like, and that just leads to more of I hate you mom content
Yep.
because Stephanie's just like, I don't need a mom right now.
Yep.
So then it goes, I believe the next one is Eric, right? Eric's next.
Yeah.
And
The
Yeah.
it
tattoo. The
yeah,
tattoo
and it
scene.
goes to the tattoo parlor. And
Yeah.
I said this to Tony in the theater because we're watching him pierce that girl's tongue. And Tony
Mm,
goes, "Can you ever imagine getting a piercing?" And I was like, "I think I'm gonna get my junk pierced." And then sure enough, later on, that comes back to fruition. But
That was
I don't know if you picked up on it. There's a really big Easter egg for why they did it that way. I don't know if you picked up on it. So
No,
we'll
no.
get there when we get to the MRI. But yeah, so
Yeah.
this was the very first look at the film they released in trailers was they showed Eric's death in the
Hmm.
tattoo parlor. And this bothered me. Not the death. They're not the whole scene. The whole scene was very, very cool, right? Like
Yeah.
the
No, I
grabbing
thought it
the
was cool
nose
too. Yeah.
hook, yeah, and him
Mm.
falling in the fire. My problem is we go to the very next day, right? And they're convinced
Mm.
Eric is dead. He won't answer his
Yeah.
phone. The tattoo parlor burnt down. Nothing. And then Eric just appears. And the only injury he has is getting branded from when he got the tattoo.
Yeah.
That's it. Like you were
Yep.
just you should have had a bandage on your nose, something. Like
Yeah. No.
you
Yeah.
got messed up, dude. You got very messed up.
Well, you ever see like those guys that have like the rings in their backs and they
Yeah,
get pulled up and things like that? Do they have like any like
Mm.
bruises or anything the next day? So maybe like that is normal for him.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe something like he does this all the time. He gets
Yeah.
led around by his nose with a
Oh
chain, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, a little
Yeah, you
BDSM
never
action,
know.
maybe.
He could
Yeah, you
have
don't
like a
know.
lot of like scar tissue and like calluses in his nose from
Yeah.
being pulled up. You know,
But like
might be a
what
thing for
his
him.
hair was still perfect. Like what about his hair should have gotten singed or something, right? Like
Yeah.
they try to write it away with just saying, "Yeah, the firefighter told me because I had a leather jacket
Leather
on, I
jacket.
was safe."
Did he
Oh
have an
yeah.
injury in the back of his hand? Because his hand came down and hit that like
No.
coin or whatever. I wasn't for
No.
sure if he had that or
No, it was
not.
the
No.
heart. It was
It was the
The
heart for the
heart,
brand.
yes.
Yeah,
tattoo. Yeah,
yeah.
he had. That's what I'm saying. That's the only injury he had was the heart beside his tattoo. It was a
But the
bullet.
interesting,
Oh, okay, yeah. But I didn't think it hit that way. I thought it was the
yeah,
back of his hand.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
the
I have
the,
no
the
idea.
problem with like that whole thing was the explanation.
Yeah,
Then later, like when he shows up, and then they're like, you know, the whole big family thing where he was product of an affair, so
yeah.
death skipped him. The looking back at that is like, okay, so if death is the one moving everything around and causing the things to move, you know, the cap's not on, all that kind of stuff, and the fan and the chain and all that. Who whispered in the death's ear, go, oh, he's not part of the family, just stop.
Yeah.
You might want to let him go. He's not such a
Yeah.
dick. Like, who did that? Like, nobody,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Right.
that's why I was like, wait a minute, you know, how does that? Because I would think it wouldn't have started at all.
Right.
Like, he just went and you saw all the things that happened, but he wasn't directly involved. Like, he like he set up the anxiety, ramped up the anxiety,
Mhm.
but
Yep.
then he just closes the door of the tattoo shop and walks out. And
Yeah.
you're like, what? Why? Duh.
Yeah.
What happened there? And then, you know, but to have death called off, how did that?
So
Why? Was he looking
so
at a ancestry.com? Oh, you know?
That's funny.
so to me in terms of film and screenwriting, I think there's two parts to this, right? I wholeheartedly believe that was a late addition to the film to ramp up the action.
Okay.
So, and I think they were just trying to fit it in then. But I also think in the screenwriting aspect, if it wasn't a late addition, it was Death's way of trying to scare him away because Bloodworth talks about a little later, and the reason Eric dies is that if you mess with Death, messes with you. So I think Death
Yep.
knew he was going to try to help Bobby later and was trying to scare
Okay.
him off.
Hmm.
So that he would go
Hmm.
away, but it wasn't his time to die, so that's why he didn't kill him.
That's
Um,
an interesting theory.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of the two for sure, because otherwise it's just not a great scene. So there
Well,
definitely had to be purpose to it. But these guys, these two filmmakers, as impressive as this film was, the last movie they made was the live action Kim Possible movie. So like they haven't done much. Like they've mostly done TV and yeah, the live action Kim Possible movie. So it's
is that like
impressive what they did with this film.
okay?
But
That's wild.
you know, in terms of screenwriting, we go to another part here that I adored that I wish they would have played with more and they didn't. The idea that Stephanie is kind of clued in to what's going to happen, right? Because they're walking with
Hmm.
Eric to their house and everything she sees, she perfectly talks about how
Yeah.
he could have died. right?
Hmm.
And it's also everything that leads to how Stephanie dies point for point.
Hmm.
Yep.
And that was a good way of cluing the audience into that's going to happen, but it didn't happen to Eric. And so the the second part, the second trailer they released, kind of confused me. And I said this to him. The second trailer shows Uncle Howard, the whole thing. But then at the very end of that trailer, they show Eric walking out into the street like Tony did in the first Final Destination when she got ganked by that bus.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
The end of the second trailer they released, Eric's walking out and he's like, "Death's not coming for our family. That's crazy." And then you see a bus come and you don't see the end of the scene. You just see blood splatter everywhere and the title credits.
Uh, hmm.
So when
Yeah.
the tattoo parlor scene happened before that, I was like, oh, maybe they just cut it from the movie. No, it was another way of them showing us, hey, Eric doesn't actually die, right?
Yeah.
But
So,
so
so that
it
does that spoil it for you, or were you
no,
just
no, it
like you
it
just?
that's why I was saying I love this marketing so much because it told me
Hmm.
multiple times how he's gonna die and they didn't do it. I thought that was
Right.
awesome. Yeah, I thought that was awesome. There is one part they put in the trailer that they cut from the movie that I'll talk about in a little bit. That confused me, but whatever. I
Hmm.
don't care. That happens all the time. Um, so then, right, a garbage truck pulls up in front of their house, and Stephanie's like, "Stay away from that garbage truck. Don't do anything with that garbage truck. It could kill you." And Eric walks up and starts gyrating and pretending to hump the, because he's teasing death, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's why the MRI machine killed him from the crotch
Yep.
out because
Yep.
he was humping and teasing death. And death's like, okay, well, this is how you're going to die. Um, so that was crazy. But yeah, so Julia walks out and Julia goes for a run. And in the background, they show us that everything Stephanie said is how Julia died. And that was sick. But it wasn't
No.
instant, right? They gave her
No.
the
No.
opportunity to try to save him and introduced, I don't know how many of my podcasts you've listened to, Mike, but there's a thing in films that I adore. And it's small characters who barely have any lines that steal a
Garbage
scene.
truck driver.
Garbage truck
Yeah.
Garbage Truck Driver listening to Stronger by Kelly Clarkson stole the
Yeah.
show for me. So good.
Uh,
But yeah, dude, Julia's death was brutal. Like everything
I
happens and
thought that
she
was
gets
great.
thrown into the garbage truck and then just gets squished right as
Yeah.
they're about to save her too.
Those were really good effects, like that, the arm rip and the head. That was I thought that was done really well.
Yeah.
I would have to imagine. I would hope that that was like a realistic arm because it looked really good.
Yeah.
With
It
only having a
tore
$50
off
million
like that.
budget, I'm sure it was mostly practical effects. It would have to be.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, I thought that was really cool. So, she dies and we get another scene of what I liked in this movie is we get a lot of scenes of all the survivors together compared to the other movies we usually got like after a couple died, we get one big survivor scene together.
Yeah.
With this all being the same family, it made a lot of sense they kept reconvening, right?
Yeah.
But
Except the
finally,
that
yeah.
dad.
Yeah. Finally, we get the moment where, Bobby has the line, especially. He's sitting there and he's like, "I'm sorry, Stephanie, we should have believed you."
Yep.
Right. And we get the big
Yeah.
reveal you already talked about. Like the mom, because Stephanie is like, "I didn't know the order it was going to go in. I thought it was going to go from oldest to youngest." And the mom breaks down. She's like, "It is going from youngest to oldest because Eric's not actually Howard's biological son."
Yep. And what was that like? We were on they were on a break or something. I don't know why I don't know why it's in
They
my
were
head.
it just said they were going through tough times and she
Two
slept
tough
with
times.
someone else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
A baseball player.
Yeah, and he's not a real person.
No.
So
Oh.
he's like,
Okay.
because when they said the name and Eric had that reaction, I was like, and because he goes, "Is that why you always wanted to play catch with me?" That told me he was a famous baseball player. I looked him up. You can't find anything about the guy.
Oh.
He's
No.
not
Yeah.
real.
So there's no card for him or
Yeah.
anything.
No,
Yeah.
because that would have been pretty funny. It's just like an obscure
Yeah.
player for the White Sox from the 1990s, um, but in that moment, right, the dad again goes for a walk because he still doesn't believe it, which he's not a part of the family, so I guess we can just get rid of him, like
Yep.
whatever, go away. Um,
Yeah.
because if he had tried to interfere, death would have killed him, so it makes sense. But like I said, at that point they figured out it is going through the bloodline. So Bobby's like, "I'm next." Um,
Mm.
So they all decide that they're going to try to go find this JB guy. And
Yep.
mom says she knows who he is. He works at a hospital about an hour away. So, this is the first one, I think, other than, I don't know about the fifth movie. The fifth movie's kind of whatever in terms of like where it's taking place. But this one, they took them out of McKinley and an hour away to show that maybe it's a little different, I guess. Um, but we get the very funny, we know that Bobby is very allergic to peanut butter.
Oh yeah.
Um, so
Yes.
they go to get in the Darlene's RV to drive to the hospital, and Eric shows up and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! You just made peanut butter cookies. I'm gonna go in here and see if there's peanut butter that could kill my brother." And so he goes, nut check," and goes in, gets the peanut butter, and comes out. And then he has the perfect Big Brother scene where he goes nut check and punches Bobby in the nuts.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And what I really liked about it, so I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter lately talking about the best characters in Final Destination, and Eric and Bobby are considered two of the absolute best. And I agree, dude. They were great.
Yeah.
This is something Mundo talked about in the Forest Film Club podcast. He said, what I loved about the first three films is that characters that were dying, we had an emotional connection to. Like we liked most of these people, right? There was a couple that you were supposed to not like the girls at the tattoo parlor, things like that. Carter in the first movie.
Yeah.
Um, but the fourth and fifth film, we didn't really have an emotional connection to most, if not any of those
Yeah.
characters. And
Yeah. I
that's
can't even remember I know the fourth one was the NASCAR thing.
yeah.
What was the
The
fifth?
fifth one
The
was the
fifth one was
bridge
the
collapse.
bridge. The bridge
Yeah.
collapse.
Hmm.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just remember those specifically for the effects. Like
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
what I remember those two for.
Well, and
Not
we
so much
talked
the
about it,
story.
right? They were filmed for 3D. Like they were
Yep.
just
Yeah.
made for 3D, and they still made a lot of
I
money.
love it.
Yeah, they were still cool, but this is the first movie that we have an emotional connection to nearly everyone except Julia. And you know what? Julia is one of the first ones to die.
Yeah.
So they get her out of there quickly. So yeah, then they go to the hospital, and it's very cool. And this is the part they cut from the trailer, or they put in the trailer that they cut from the movie. So when they're going in the spinning doors, right? That's a cool scene because they're
Yeah.
like, I don't know
Yeah.
if we're gonna go in there. And my question was, is that the only entrance to this
That's what I
hospital?
thought. Yeah, I was like, "Are you telling me?"
Yeah.
Yeah, because
How are you?
they got to have even if they did like a sliding door, one of those automatic doors like they have at ERs,
Yeah.
that still would have caused that anxiety as well.
Right.
Because that could be like they go through it and they're like, looking, oh man,
Yeah.
smash them. But
And
yeah, there has to be other doors.
if you think about the hospitals too, right? They need a door for gurneys, wheelchairs. You can't take a gurney through those spinning doors, right? There had to be another way. But
Yeah.
what they cut from the trailer is that Darlene actually gets caught in that spinning door, um,
Oh,
Oh,
and
okay.
almost
I didn't see
dies.
that one.
Now
I
I'm
did not know
assuming
that.
because of the bloodline, like lineage or whatever, somebody would have saved her, right? And
Mhm.
so she wouldn't have died. But yeah, they just completely cut it from the movie.
Hmm.
Um, but they get in, they meet with Bloodworth. We get the reveal of who he is, and what this told me was that every single person who has died in the Final Destination series has a
Mhm.
tie back to the Skyview Tower.
Well, yeah, that's
Like,
what I thought. That's why I thought like this was the Umbrella movie.
yeah,
That's what I figured out. I was like, that it's all tied.
yeah. And we got confirmation today from someone on Reddit that that is the case because they zoomed in on that scene where they have like all the bloodlines, and
Yeah.
the teacher from the first film, her ancestor was at Skyview.
Okay.
Hmm.
So
I thought I
100%.
just thought it was like the book was that.
Yeah.
I thought the book was basically telling Final Destination 1 through 5.
Yeah.
You know,
And it
that's
and it kind of
yeah.
did, right? So, the Easter eggs in the book, we'll go through them now. So it shows the plane exploding. It
Mhm.
shows a log truck. It shows a guy getting his head crushed by a brick, which was Alex, right? It showed a grill, which was the kid from the farm at the end of the second one.
Mhm.
And then it also shows, oh shoot, where did I put it? Oh, it shows a wood chipper.
Yeah.
And we've never seen someone die in a wood chipper in these films, but he and I talked about this in the uh so the second movie, Kimberly and the cop survived, right? Because they
Yeah.
had new life. There's a deleted scene in the third film where we get another newspaper showing that Kimberly and the sheriff died and they fell
Yeah.
into a wood chipper.
You're right. The interesting thing about that third film, I don't know if you guys know this, but talk about, but in the DVD there was a choose your own death.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
you could choose kind of like how it ended. It had all these different endings, and then
Mm.
you had to choose your path. And I think that was one of them. It was like part of like the deleted scenes that they made it like, back in that time. They were doing a lot of interactive like DVDs, and that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
one of them.
Nice.
Hmm.
So I leaned over to him when that happened with the wood chipper in the book. I was like, "Hey, they just made it canon that the
Yeah.
people in the second one die." But then they immediately did away with it because they
Yes.
start talking to Bloodworth, and
Yes.
Bloodworth specifically says Kimberly survived the entire time. She never
Mhm.
died. So it was, I think it was just an Easter egg for people that love the movies to be like, "Oh, there's the
Yeah.
wood chipper." Like, I don't know. But yeah, she actually beat death. Um so yeah, so they talk to him a little bit, and there's a beautiful moment with Bloodworth where he starts to walk away, and he turns around and says, like, "You never know when you're gonna go." He's like, "Live life to the fullest. You're all gonna die, and
Mhm.
then I'm gonna die after you." And as everyone knows, Tony Todd had died. So the directors in that scene, when they were writing the movie, they knew he was sick.
Mhm.
Because he
Mhm.
was, I
Right.
believe, supposed to be a larger part of this movie. They knew he was sick, and he still said, "I want to be in this because it could be my last film ever," and it was.
Mhm.
So that part when he's walking away out the door was not scripted. They told him, look at the screen and tell, or look at the camera and tell us, your thoughts about life and the fact you've been in this, and that was all from the heart. And like
Yeah.
you had an emotional reaction to it because you were like, "Wow, like,
Yeah.
oh my god."
Well, I mean, were you the one that told me, or did I read it on? I might have read it that that scene had to be done several times
Yeah.
because the whole cast broke down crying.
Yeah, they were so
Like,
emotional for
yeah,
Yeah.
him.
so emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So,
really like that scene. It was
yeah.
very, there's exposition and poignancy to it. In the midst of all the gore and the blood and everything like that, it was like this little break, this little vignette with Tony Todd. I thought was really cool. Nicely
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Well,
So going back to that thing you said about it was all tied in, and what's her name, Kimberly. Wonder she wasn't part of the bloodline.
I'm thinking everyone was.
Well, but her dad survived. Her mother was her mother dead.
I think so. Yeah.
So her okay, that could have been part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I'm not even saying that everyone on the plane was connected to that, right? I'm saying
Right.
that
Right.
because the teacher was,
Yes.
everyone else is now affected by it. And people in the second movie, maybe they weren't connected to the bloodline at all, but every single one of them was connected to a death in the first film. We went through it in our review, right? Like every single one of them was
Yeah.
connected
Oh,
in some
yes.
way.
The main characters,
Right.
but everybody else that died just
Yeah.
died.
Right. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is the ripple effect, right? And they played on that a
Yeah.
lot. Like you
Mhm.
throw a stone out and it's the butterfly effect. So yeah, I don't know, but
Throw a stone.
yeah.
Part four.
Yeah. Right. Right. So then yeah, we then get Eric and Bobby leave and try to, they're like, "Hey, if you die and come back to life, we can beat this thing." So
Mhm.
Eric tries to help Bobby die, and it leads to another. This movie was hilarious. All these movies are pretty funny. This movie specifically was hilarious because then they go to the vending machine, and again, Bobby's deathly allergic to nuts. So Eric buys him, or is gonna buy him, these unsalted peanuts.
Yeah.
And Eric's like, "If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die not from that unsalted crap." He goes, "Get me peanut butter cups." So they buy the peanut butter cups, right? And but they don't come out. They it
Right.
it sticks in the vending machine. So then they're shaking it around, and Bobby is again the idea
No,
of
I thought he was
hope. He's like in
Yeah.
front of the vending machine like this, trying to hold it up, and you think it's gonna fall and crush him, and
Yep.
it doesn't.
Right. There's so many
Yeah.
things that you think are going to happen and they don't, like that.
Yep.
And then the spring does come out and just, I think it like may gets real close to the glass or hits the glass, but
Yeah.
you're like, oh,
Oh.
okay. You're just like,
Yeah.
okay. And then
That might do
you
something.
you you tend to sometimes you tend to forget about those things because of everything else happening.
Right.
And when
I
something
did.
involves that, you're even more surprised. You're like, oh my gosh, how did I forget
Yeah.
that? That was
Yeah.
like only a minute ago. So
But yeah, so Eric then goes to find a wheelchair so that he can take Bobby after he dies from the MRI room that they're hiding in over to ER to get his heart
mm,
shocked back or whatever.
right.
Um, and so he goes and talks to this lady, and they introduce her just to bring her back later, right? But he goes and he takes her wheelchair, goes back in the room, and something I don't remember why it happened. Maybe you guys do, but for some reason the MRI machine starts ramping up.
Oh, it happened before he went to get the wheelchair. They they hit something or whatever
Yeah, I think
that
they just
turned it
knocked
on.
something over. Yeah.
Yeah, not something over that turned it on.
Yeah. Were they fighting about something? I forget what was going on because I forget.
Yeah, I forget too. But anyhow, the MRI machine is turning on, right? And everyone knows MRIs are super magnetic.
Yes.
And things are slowly starting to come back to the room. And then when Eric goes in and gives Bobby the peanut butter cup, Bobby is like, he almost doesn't want to do it, right? And then Eric remembers that he has an EpiPen on him, and he's like, no, give me your EpiPen. You're not using this, right? And takes it from him. And then the MRI machine gears up even higher and starts sucking everything metal into it, including Eric.
Yeah.
Because Eric has
Yeah.
so many piercings. So it rips his ears off, and starts pulling him in, and he gets up tight against the MRI machine. And what were you telling me about his tattoo?
Yeah. So he's getting pulled in the machine. You have like his nipple piercings and everything, and the wheelchair comes up behind him. Right. Got a skull tattoo on the front. Now that wheelchair starts bending out into chest, and then it. I don't know if you can see this,
Yeah,
but there is the poster, and that is what they did for his
with his
chest.
tattoo. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep,
wow.
yep, that was pretty cool. I thought, whoa, I've seen that before.
Yeah, and so Eric gets folded up like a chair and sucked in. And meanwhile, Bobby has already eaten the peanut butter cup. So
Mhm.
he's
Yep,
starting to die. And he gets scared and he starts crawling towards the EpiPen, right? And he gets it and he puts it into himself. And honestly, I don't remember how Bobby died now. Oh, yes, I
Oh,
do.
I know how.
yes,
Yeah,
You
oh
got
no,
one of
it.
my
yeah,
favorite
Yeah, you
deaths.
got it.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
best part.
The spring. And when you said that
Yep,
earlier about the spring out of the vending machine, I just got that. I mean, right here, sitting
yeah,
right here.
yeah, oh
Um,
yeah,
oh
okay,
my, that's one of my coolest deaths.
that,
I think
I loved it.
that was awesome because the nurse comes in, or whoever that was comes
Yeah,
in
she opens
Yeah,
the
and
door.
opens the door, and he gets shot right in the
yep,
head with that freaking spring. That was so cool.
Yep.
yeah, I thought that was great.
Yep. So, like I said earlier, but we'll reiterate it now that we're talking about it. Eric only died because he tried to alter
Yep,
Death's plans. Which again was shown in the second film with that kid with the grill because the stoner guy got saved by that kid on the farm, and that's why he was the final death in the movie because he tried to
Oh
change Death's
yes.
plans.
yep,
So at that point, Stephanie, Charlie, and Darlene are like, okay, now it's our side of the family that's going to die. And this, Mundo said this, and I hadn't thought about it until we talked about it, but I agree. This is the part of the movie that it fell off for me.
The- I
yeah,
talked to you about this before about how they rushed deaths and stuff.
Yeah,
I think this part they just wanted to finish the movie or
I
something.
agree. Yeah, and
And
that was my comment too, that they
yes,
were like, they're realizing how they are on runtime and they're just going to end it.
mm,
It was cool. I did like it, but the idea that they went back to Iris's cabin,
yeah,
knowing how
yeah,
treacherous it would be to
yeah,
get inside, like,
yep.
why? Get
What
in
is
your RV and just drive. right? Like
Yeah,
just
where did well, they were going to take the mom there. I mean, what they, I mean, I guess they could have done is the mom, didn't the mom, was she was going to go by herself, right? But they
she
all decided to
was,
go with
yeah,
her.
right. Because they wanted to
Um,
play on the idea that Stephanie can see death coming. But my problem with that is that she didn't do it again the entire movie.
right,
She did that thing with
right.
Julia, and then not a single other time did she do anything except for when they get to Iris's house. She's like, "Death is about to make a move," and that's it. That's all
Mm,
that happened. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, it was, I don't know, it was confusing for me. So, they get there, they realize Death's
yeah,
going to make a move, and they ram through the gate to try to get in. And
yeah,
Death was such a scamp in this moment because Death is like, no, no, no. That lady survived for 60 years in this house. I'm going to blow this shit up. And he blows the
yeah.
house up.
Like I would think that even with the driving through the gate, that's an opportunity for death.
Kill
I mean, it's
somebody,
just like,
Yes.
right? A
yeah,
spike to
like
come through. Like,
exactly. That's what I thought was going to happen because the mom was sitting in the back.
yeah,
You had the people in the front and mom's in the back, and I thought one of the spikes was going to go through, get her. I mean, you're
yeah,
doing something that kind of invites death with the whole
right.
ramming of the
Hmm.
gate,
Yeah,
and then the van turns over and lands
yeah,
on its side or something, and the son gets out, the mom gets out, but she's stuck because her it broke like her seatbelt, and she's stuck. Just somehow landed in this puddle that was
yeah.
deep. One thought, I guess, like she didn't
Was it
like I didn't
was it a
know Iris.
moat? We didn't see that at the first one. Was it a
Yeah,
moat? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it was a moat. I didn't even think it's crazy. I was like, that. Why don't you just lift your head up? Like I don't understand how deep is that water?
Yeah.
You know? But
Yeah, I don't know either. And if I'm rewriting this movie again, like what I would have done when they ran the gate, I'd have had the RV break in half. And so mom is in the back half and she's like, just go, like, save yourselves, right? But no,
yeah,
it just leads to this huge explosion. So mom then saves her son, which doesn't affect anything because he wasn't the next one to die, right?
right.
So it saves the son, and this part was a little rushed then because mom, he's like, "Thank you, mom," and she immediately dies. She has
Yeah,
like
yeah,
an electric pole fall on her, and then he
yep,
goes to save his sister, um, and he does, and this actually changes Death's pattern because she was the next one to die, right? And
yeah.
that's why at the
Wow.
very end he died before her. Barely. It was only a second or two.
Apparently, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
why he died
At the
before
very
her.
end. At the
Yes.
very end, and that was
So
the whole thing with that dog, that smug doctor. I
Yeah.
was like, did they have
yes.
to make that? There could have been a better delivery with that guy,
Well,
because he could have been a little nicer.
I think he's going to be the new Bloodworth going forward. That was the vibes I got
Oh,
from him.
I don't even know. I don't know. I mean, it was sort of a
Yeah.
whole new franchise. I think.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that. I think this
I
sixth one
I
This
is a
ended it.
box.
I
This is a
I
box.
want this to be the end because this is the
Yes.
Yeah.
perfect encapsulation of all the movies, all the Easter eggs, all the things,
Yes.
and
Mm,
it brought it all together. I'm hoping
yeah.
this is the end because if we're going with the theory that everyone is connected to that thing at the first, this should
Yep.
hopefully be everyone now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Death's whole final destination. This should be its final destination.
Yeah.
Um, but we talked about it, right? Like Charlie saves his sister, and then we think everything's okay, because she drowned and he brought her back to life. But this is completely different than how Kimberly died. Kimberly drowned and her heart stopped, and they used an EKG or whatever and brought her back
Yes.
to
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
With her, she just passed out and he gave her
Yep.
CPR and brought her back to life.
Yep.
But this leads to, so there's something I didn't talk about at the beginning that was important that I will right now. We get the coin again, right? The
Yeah.
old
Hmm.
lady from the hospital had found the coin outside from
Yep.
because it fell
Mm,
out of the book. And she is going to buy cookies at a lemonade stand close to where Charlie is picking up his prom date. And the coin falls out. We see Death take the coin down, and it sticks in the train tracks. We saw those train tracks at the very beginning of the film
yep.
because that's how
And
Iris and her fiance
and
were
the same
getting.
car. And the same car
Right.
too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So, and I'll talk about a car in a second because there was an Easter egg I found with the car, Stephanie's car too. But so, they mess up the train, and then, when the doctor delivers that line, like, well, you didn't actually die, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we
She
hear the
didn't actually
train
die.
coming. Yeah, we hear the train coming, and immediately you know what's going to happen. And the train starts getting close to them, but we get that idea of hope because they outrun the train, and the train
Yeah,
can't get them.
Yep.
But then the
yeah,
log truck
yeah.
does. The logs come
Well,
over and flatten both of them.
is it a log truck or a log
I think it's
I
logs
think
on
train?
the
it's a log.
train.
Yeah, I think it's a
Oh
log
yeah,
car.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
yeah,
they come flying over, and then it's like
yeah.
again, there's your Easter egg, the
From
number
part
To
two.
the
two, right? I
logs.
mean,
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
yeah. But you said about a car. So Stephanie's car, they show us specifically her driving with the license plate RFK 575. This isn't the first time that's been in Final Destination. Carter from the first film, that's his exact license plate. RFK
no
575.
way.
Yep.
Wow.
Ah,
Yep.
that
The
is
exact same
that's
license
a
plate.
throwback. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. So there were so many things, like I said, like this is what I want in a movie that you give us a sequel 14 to 15 years later. You give us something that, we said we were going to say this at the beginning, we didn't. You don't have to watch any other Final Destination to
No.
watch and appreciate this one.
right.
This can be an entirely separate thing, and we're seeing that at the box office, dude. It's the biggest opening for an R-rated film in a decade for like domestic weekend.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, absolutely insane.
you could
Um,
actually start with this one if you wanted to.
you could.
Oh yeah.
You could.
Absolutely you could. Yeah, and it
Yeah,
would make all the other ones make, a
More
little bit more
sense.
sense. But the
yeah,
nice part is if you do like the franchise, you get all these Easter eggs and you can
Yes.
appreciate
yeah.
all of the Easter eggs. Um so yeah, I think those are honestly those are all of my Easter eggs. So what we talked about our favorite death at the beginning. Give me your favorite death in the film, just overall.
I think my favorite death is the spring in the head.
Yeah.
Between that and the him going into the MRI machine.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
I mean, I knew that this question was gonna come up, so I was like, well, I loved them all, really. I
Yeah.
mean, just for different reasons. But in terms of, I mean, I like the spiral vending machine thing, but I would go with the sister's death in the
Oh,
because
that was cool.
there
Yes.
was that little modicum of hope because you still didn't really know why it skipped Eric. And
Yes.
at
Yeah.
that point, you're thinking maybe she can get her out because
Yeah.
there's like a mistake or something here. You don't really
Yep.
know. And then when she doesn't get her out, I'm like, oh, and that, so I would go with that one.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah. Well, since neither of you used it for your favorite one of the entire movie, mine's still the piano. The piano was so great.
Yeah, that was
That
awesome.
that kid deserved that so
Oh,
much.
Yeah,
yes, most
Like,
definitely.
yeah.
But so,
so
what's your favorite death throughout the whole entire franchise, though?
oh, easy. Barbed
The barbed
wire.
wire line.
Yeah,
Barbed
Yeah,
barbed
barbed
wire.
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 Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
my favorite one would probably have to be the stone,
Oh,
the
to the
stone to the eye.
in the fourth one. Yeah.
Ah,
Yes, because it's her kids that killed her.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
You
you
telling us you
know,
want your kids to kill?
3 times people have died from eye injuries
Yeah.
in the whole entire franchise.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
4, 5, and what's the other one?
So the first one, I mean the second one, where the fire escape
Oh
comes
yeah,
down,
into his
crushes them in
eye.
the eye,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then in the one in the when she's given
Yeah, the fifth
the
movie, the LASIK
the
surgery.
LASIK surgery and her with the rock in the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yep. So, I have, Mike, we did this on Clown in the Cornfield. We can do it now. I have two, I already talked about the one, but I have funny scenes that I really appreciate in this movie. So the first one, like I said, the garbage truck driver listening to Stronger by Kelly Clarkson. That was so good. The,
Mhm.
the music in this one, I understand it wasn't the best songs. It was the best music across the
I
board
think
for what
so.
they used.
I wanted to mention that
Yeah.
the first song, Ring of Fire.
Yep.
I mean, that
Yes.
was awesome.
Yeah.
The best soundtrack. I
Yeah.
mean, most
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, but the other funny scene, you and I were dying, is in the hospital when Eric and Bobby found out that if you kill someone, you take their life, and they're walking by the nursery and they see like
Oh
the
yes,
Chinese
yeah.
It's so funny.
and
It's like,
they're
oh, we
like
could.
a kid. Nah, we're not going to do that. And then they think about it again. And they're
Yeah,
like, no, we're not going to.
yeah.
I like it when he goes to get the wheelchair
Yeah.
and he asks the old lady, "How much time do you have left?"
Yeah. It's so funny too because he's talking to the nurse and he's like, "Oh, I gotta talk to my grandma," and just sits down and the
Yes.
lady doesn't even question it. So, what would be yours, pal? What do you think the funniest part of this movie was?
Well, yeah, I would agree with the baby thing because I
Yeah,
thought
Yeah, that's
there's
funny.
like that little bit there.
yeah,
It's like, oh, this could
maybe.
take a turn. Yeah, maybe. Never been done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. I mean, I would say that, I said before that four was my favorite. I understand four is like the black sheep of the franchise for some reason. I adore it.
Really?
I think it's so good. But this one has surpassed it. This is my favorite,
Oh,
and we'll see.
awesome.
We'll see on rewatches if it stays that way. It
Yeah.
could be recency bias. I can usually put recency bias out. But yeah, I adored this movie. I was not expecting. I said it was my fourth favorite horror film of the year.
Mm.
So Sinners was my favorite. Then The Rule of Jenny Penn, and
No,
then
I haven't seen that yet.
yeah, The Rule of Jenny Penn rips, dude. And
I
then
can't wait to watch that.
Steven Soderbergh's Presence, where it's all filmed from the spirit's perspective. That's my
Hmm.
third, and then this is fourth.
Wow, I have to
So
check
Wow.
those 2 and 3 out. And
yeah,
there was
and
there was
one.
another.
Yeah,
Oh
because
yeah,
you need to
oh
see Sinners
the
too.
top
You do
Yeah,
all
three. Yeah,
three
I
of
gotta
them.
see
I
Yeah,
this.
just
Well,
think
I
they're
think I
good
was like,
too.
there was this other horror movie I thought just came out like A24. I don't know if it's any good or not. It was with John Malkovich and the 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 sous chef from The Bear.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
It was like he's like a singer or something like that. I think that's supposed to be like I heard that might be good too. So,
I don't know.
geez,
Oh,
are
oh,
you
oh, 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 oh. Opus. He's
Opus?
on
Yeah,
Opus.
Opus.
Yeah, I
Yep.
liked Opus. Yeah, that's my fifth
Okay.
favorite after this one.
Oh,
So
there you go. Okay then. Yeah,
yeah,
it's on my list. And the funny thing was like last night I actually started watching The Super, and what made me think about that is because Tony talking about the eyes, and like I didn't finish the movie yet, but there's a very small scene that kind of sets up the movie in the beginning, and she has like pencils like in her eyes and in
Oh
her hands,
my.
like right at the beginning, and it's like one of these like older like Val Kilmer movies, like whenever he was
mm.
like doing like independent films, like
Which was
supposed to be
most of the end
end
of
of his
his
career.
career was
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
supposed to
straight to
be.
DVD films. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I gotta finish that today, but I also gotta finish a Halloween Feast too. So I gotta get
Yeah.
that done.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one, man. My interview with him is tomorrow, and then we're recording that Wednesday, so that'll be out by the end of the week. So yeah, man, that's Final Destination Bloodlines. Anything else you guys want to talk about with it?
No.
Just real quick, I mean, the last one we did was Clown on Cornfield, which was more of like a kind of a slasher. Everyone was
Yeah,
talking about how it wasn't a supernatural thing,
yeah,
where we thought it might be, but this was this completely supernatural movie here. So that was
yeah,
pretty cool to have
Yeah.
something different that we
yeah.
haven't seen in almost 15 years. So,
Right.
and it came back with a bang. That's
Yeah.
my final thought.
It sure did. And I said about I'd love for this to be the end. I'd also be cool if they keep making these, right? Like it's an
Yeah,
idea you can like rinse, wash, repeat if you want. But this to me, this is the perfect film to end the franchise on.
I hope they don't
yep,
come back and try to do a remake,
Right. Just take a
like
new
yeah,
idea.
10
no,
years later.
yep,
Yeah,
Yeah, like
exactly.
they did with the monkey. The monkey is a very similar idea, but
yep,
it's completely separate.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Yes.
so cool. All right. Well, thanks for talking about this with me, guys. This has been the Real Friends podcast, and we will see you next time.